In 1985, that was the really critical time, the beginning of 1985.
So that was Rainbow Warrior year?
No, Rainbow Warrior year, but I'm talking earlier than Rainbow Warrior.
Okay.
Rainbow Warrior is July. I'm talking January 1985. This is the critical time from my point of view.
Right.
And that was the time when the United States decided to test the Longy government, which had said it was going to have a nuclear-free legislation. It was going to, be opposed to all nuclear weapons coming into the country. So the United States decided to test it, and they decided to test it with a vessel which we now know as the Buchanan. I think initially we didn't actually even know which one it was, but we knew which class it was. Mm-hmm. So we knew that it was capable of carrying nuclear weapons. And we got wind of all this visit being planned in January, which is always a difficult time for protest because a lot of people are away on holiday and so forth and so on. But nevertheless, it was a really vital time.
Northland beaches or the safety of the world? Northland beaches.
Well, the safety of the world won.
Yeah, good. It's the right choice.
The safety of the world won on this occasion.
Yeah.
Amazing, really. I still think this is amazing because what we decided to do when we got all our facts together was we thought, well, we've got to do the traditional Auckland thing. We've got to have a march up Queen Street to Aotea Square. And by the time we decided, we only had about 2 days' notice. But we got the word out, and 15,000 people flooded into Aotea Square to say what I just said to you. If in doubt, keep them out. And the Labour cabinet was meeting, and the caucus was meeting, and all these things were going on. But I think with that grassroots support for a position of saying no, the government had very little leeway.
I think something that will make it even more interesting. Jace, can you Google population of Auckland 1985? I'm interested just to see what it would be the equivalent of for people who are having a look.
Gosh, can you Google that?
Yeah, I think you will. I mean, I'm thinking if there was 500,000 people in Auckland, then that's the equivalent of a march today with 50,000 people. 3 times the population, 3 times the numbers, which is huge. So your role was more on shore, organising in the office, organising the people, and you called it the Peace Squadron. Those are the guys out in the little rubber raft dinghies zipping around.
Right. George Armstrong was one of the founders of the Peace Squadron. I think he was the one who had the original inspiration. But it was amazing how that picked up too. Yeah. And people were incredibly brave. Incredibly brave. One guy jumped up on a submarine, a guy called Philip Sherry,
Not the Philip Sherry.
Oh, no, I got the wrong name.
I was going to say, gosh, that would make for an interesting news item.
Sherry was his surname. Perhaps I'm remembering the wrong first name.
Mr. Sherry.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. We talked earlier, and I really want to hear the story about this. There was some involvement. You had some connection to the Rainbow Warrior, including a connection to the perpetrators. Not a personal connection. You saw them around. I'm not saying you knew them or interacted with them, but
Well, as I said, I was working quite closely with Greenpeace in those days.
Yeah.
And so at one point I was going to a meeting. At that stage we were also involved in solidarity for the Kanak people of New Caledonia, because we were part of a movement that was called the Nuclear Free and Independent Pacific Movement, which still exists, of course, because it's a movement calling not just for the Pacific to be nuclear free, but also for the remaining areas in the Pacific that are still under colonial control to have their freedom. So obviously we were very much focused at that stage on some of the struggles that were happening in New Caledonia. And my Greenpeace friends told me that there was a French woman in their office who was interested in going to this meeting, and that turned out to be Christine Gabon, and I gave her a lift to the meeting. So
now she wasn't one of the two.
She wasn't. She wasn't one of the
Dominique Priere and Elaine Mafawa. The perpetrators.
No, she was an early infiltrator.
Right.
She infiltrated Greenpeace to find out information about the Rainbow Warrior and its voyage.
Wow.
And let the DGSE know that information.
So she was one of the spies.
Absolutely.
Who was doing the groundwork for the attack.
Yes.
Because I'm interested, as we're talking, I'm thinking as well, obviously there was a lot of focus on the US
Yes.
with keeping weapons
Yes.
out of our
Oh, but
waters.
also on France.
Yeah, but on France as well, because that was it Muriroa Atoll?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, yes.
And so there was actual nuclear testing going on in South Pacific.
Of course.
So
Until 1995, the French were testing in the Pacific.
So was there like a focus, was that Greenpeace's focus more kind of going out there? Because that's why they bombed it, so that they wouldn't go out and cause mischief.
Absolutely. The voyage of the Rainbow Warrior was very interesting because it came into Auckland Harbour, having just been in the Micronesian island of Rongelap, where the people were suffering because of the radioactive poisoning, and the US would not attend to these people, and Greenpeace did a really wonderful humanitarian mission in taking the people off the island of Rongelap. And there's a very, very, sort of poignant pictures of these people having to leave their island because it was absolutely uninhabitable and go and live elsewhere. And no one would help them except Greenpeace.